Well, we're back with some more blower talk here. My videos, I try to keep them short, and of course I end up leaving stuff out, and I don't even try editing. I just kind of let it fly. But this one we're going to talk about the blower drive itself. The blower, this is an old one we had in stock. It fits our Detroit diesels. We converted that over, which that's another episode in itself. It's not that hard to do. Then I went to Blower Drive service, got them on the phone, and Christina walked us through this and told her what the engine was. It's a 68 Ford Galaxy with a 302 in it, and we've got alternator and power steering. And of course, first thing she said, well, you need the 2V kit. So that's what the 2V meant, 2V belts. And of course I opened my mouth up and I told her, I said, well, there's no way we'll get this right the first time. There's just so many different measurements and tolerances, and I got my fan there, and I said it'll take 2 or 3 tries. And she just came back real quick. She said, no, it should fit, and so I thought, okay. And the drive kit showed up, and it fit just like she said. So I had to eat my words on that one. I was glad too. I just, everything we try to modify seems like you change something, you got to go change something else. But that sucker fit right in there. There's not a lot of room between the fan and the pulley, but it misses by about 1/8 of an inch. That's all it needs. And the way they do that, they've got, and I'm just going to say this, they may have more, at least 4 different lengths of drive hubs. This is a 5 3/4, and there's a multitude of combinations you come up with. Here's your pulley, and then that's a shim behind the pulley, and they've got all different sizes of shims. I don't know if you can see down in there on my harmonic balancer, there's 2 shims behind that to get the right distance. And the way I've got my belt length for them is I had my blower mounted, and then we just measured from the center of the crank up to the center line of that blower case, and I gave them that dimension, and then they would have went back in their workshop and mocked one up, and then the belt was the perfect length. So big shout out to Blower Drive, those guys. And something else I'll talk about is my carburetor linkage and why we went with the Edelbrocks. I guess that Edelbrock, that's really the old Carter carburetor design. And we looked at some Hollies first, and we was gonna have to mount them side saddle because of that. Here's one for example. You see how the fuel bowls stick way out on those Hollies, and you're gonna have to mount the carburetors sideways on top. And I didn't really like that. I've seen that done, but you got to get the linkage is more complex, and we wanted to keep this simple, and that's what we've done. Our linkage is all made out of scrap. I think and then here we'll just start out. Here's our original Ford Accelerator cable, and I think we drilled and tapped the intake for that little piece of angle aluminum, bolted it in, and put a U-bolt on the cable. And then this is just scrap aluminum we had laying around. We do welding and fabrication for people. This piece that's a step off of a Ford CL 9000 tractor, like where you step up into the old cab over. And I think this is off of a 1965 Chevy C60 old parts truck we got, that linkage. and just a little piece of aluminum angle there to connect the two carburetors with. No fancy Heim joints. It didn't cost $200 to make it. Just used stuff we had laying around, and it works pretty good. Pretty smooth. I kind of leave it just a little loose. I like things a little sloppy. Seems like it just works a little bit better. And one thing I have to say about these carburetors, that's the first time I'd ever tried an Edelbrock carburetor. Because we got our blower drive on that evening and we threw the carburetors on. Started that thing up, and I mean, it ran right out of the box. I didn't have to make very many adjustments on them. It idled too fast. It idled at like 1200 RPM, which would be normal because we got two carburetors on it. So we had to back the idle off. But other than that, I'm pretty pleased with those carburetors, and they were 1405s is what they are. Manual choke. And there's what I did with my manual choke. I just kind of looks like a little wire there that I bent, and in the holder, that's just like a little piece of nylon rope to give a little resistance. Put your choke on, which I never used the chokes. We got the car out back in January. It might have been 35 degrees that morning. I just give him 3 or 4 pumps and fires up, let him warm up a little bit, and he's ready to go. And I think I've mentioned it. I checked the oil in it yesterday. I didn't show that, but right there is your bolt hole. That's the level of the oil you want in the case. And what I'll do is just take these two out and then let that tri-plate fall down. Then I'll just, if I need to add a little bit, I'll throw a little bit in there. You just bring it up to where it just starts to run out of that hole. You don't want to overfill it. That's one thing they told me at Blower Drive. Don't overfill it. You know, just bring it up to that bolt level. I think you can use this bolt too. But just some random trivia for the guys that wonder why that's there on the Detroit. That is a position for the water pump. Could be a water pump, or there's your fuel pump. Like on that rascal right